Lyme disease, heart surgeries, and a host of other issues. Today I'm talking to Jamie, who has been able to manage all the issues she's experienced in the past using a ketogenic diet that she's followed for the last 2 years. Guys, just before we get started, please smash the like button and subscribe. This helps me to be another voice out there spreading the word about the carnivore diet. Thank you so much, and let's meet Jamie. So you've been on the low carb diet for about 2 years now. Can you tell us about it?
Absolutely. During my own healing journey, I tried numerous types of things to include other dietary interventions. And what I found was I feel best on a low carb ketogenic diet. Now, it's not something that I do, 24/7, 365 days a year. I make sure that I do cycle in carbs, very healthy carbs like sweet potato that are good for female hormones certain days of the month. But otherwise, I like to tell people that a ketogenic diet is my house. I can leave and go to work. I can leave and go to vacation, but I always come home to that diet. The reason I got on that is as somebody in the nutrition field, I was always very careful about what I ate. And the answer is always, remove this, remove this. And you do that. And for a time, you do feel better if you remove gluten or bring in more protein or go to a plant-based diet or whatever. Any shift, right? Any kind of shift where you take your body out of homeostasis is going to shock it. It's going to cause a positive or negative effect temporarily, but it always wore off. I felt like I would be slightly better and then I would stall. Or long term, I would feel worse than I started because it just wasn't right for me. And no matter how healthy I ate, I knew all the right things to eat. We talk about all the, nature's bounty, right? But I continued to have digestive issues. I was always bloated. I had no energy, terrible brain fog. My memory was horrible. There were days I felt like I couldn't even do math. And so when I decided to try the ketogenic diet, it wasn't intentional at first. I started to dabble a little bit into fasting, first intermittent fasting and then some extended fasting. And what I realized is how good I felt, not just because I was giving my body a chance to, repair. Like when you stop assimilating food, it can actually go and clean house. But also while I was doing that, I was putting it into autophagy. I was putting it into ketosis, and I was getting those ketones that our brain loves so much. And so I started to see benefit of being in ketosis for more than just what I originally set out for it for. And the energy and the brain clarity was massive. I have no other way to explain it. So even when I stopped, and I still intermittent fast, but when I stopped diving so heavily into it as a reparative process, I chose to stay in a ketogenic state though, because of how good it made me feel. And so that's how I ended up living this life where I'm on the keto diet most of my time. And I'm very careful to make sure it's a clean keto. I do want to preface that. There's so many dirty keto diets out there that people get into. And is it going to give them weight loss at first? Sure. But it's not going to give the healing benefits of a clean ketogenic diet. And so that's the way I live now, is to make sure that my macros are good, but also what I'm putting in my body. There's so many wonderful foods that you can have that are going to be low carb, high fat, moderate protein, but not cause further inflammation in the body.
So can I just touch on the dirty versus clean keto? So how do you define what's the difference? I've got in my head what I see as dirty and clean, but how about you?
Well, let me just say there are days, right? Progress over perfection, good, better, best. I will be in a hurry and I'll run in and I'll buy like a keto protein bar or something like that, knowing it's gonna have maybe some sugar alcohols that aren't the best for my digestive system. Or, you know, people sometimes tend to, it's all they want are the smoothies or the protein bars that are full of all those sugar alcohols or perhaps ingredients that they can't pronounce, or they eat a ton of dairy. And dairy is inflammatory for a lot of people, especially if it's been processed, it's not raw dairy. So that's where I kind of start to say, okay, it's one thing to be practical in our life. And when we're traveling, we're in a hurry, you know, we have to grab a bar or two. But on the regular basis, if we're really looking for more benefit beyond just weight loss, we should be careful about how often we have those things. I consider those to be kind of the dirtier keto, and focus more on, you know, wild caught seafood, grass fed meats, you know, low starch vegetables, some berries, organic when you can get it, and all those good oils like avocado oil, olive oil, coconut oil, MCT, lard. And just if you focus on all of that and just try to make the cheater foods more of a one-off, then you go into more of a cleaner ketogenic diet. And then you can actually get all the benefits from the diet beyond just the weight loss.
Yeah, those the keto bars and stuff are dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly for my experiences, yeah, they've thrown me off keto a number of times.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so you mentioned bloat and digestive issues and brain fog. Like if you kind of take those things, and if there were other issues, but if you take those things all together, like how would that have negatively impacted a day for you? Like, um, if you're thinking about a regular work day, what would that have meant for you?
Be honest, it actually affected me mentally more than it even did physically. I think society has screwed us, for lack of a better word. Like everybody feels like how they look to somebody else physically. That's how we perceive ourselves, right? That's our
Mm.
self worth. And we get on the scale, and if the scale dropped, if not, then we're going to have a bad day. I used to say, you know, back in my healing journey, I'd get on the scale, and my husband's like, "What are you doing? You get on the scale every day." And I'm like, because I have to decide how much I'm going to lose myself today. And it took a long time to get out of that. Um, because when you're constantly bloated, like I wouldn't even eat. I'd get up in the morning, have nothing but water, and I would still bloat. So I knew my microbiome was off, that I had definitely an imbalance of bad bacteria in my gut. But what made it worse is, as through my healing journey and all the different medications and stuff I was on, I lost some of the good strands that actually help break down carbohydrates in your gut. And so as a result, it didn't matter how healthy the carbohydrate was. I couldn't do it. I would look like I was 6 months pregnant. I'd be double over in pain. And then, you know, there comes that state of mind, you know, you're mad at yourself. And then you say, well, I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to eat the rest of the day. I'm mad. And the brain fog was still there. Like people talk about brain fog with gluten, especially if somebody has a gluten intolerance. So they say, I don't eat wheat, it makes my brain fuzzy. Well, carbohydrates did that to me. It was almost as if, because I couldn't break them down, they would sit in my gut and ferment. And then, of course, they feed the bad bugs. And the bad bugs are the ones that are going to give you that brain fog. There is a direct communication between our microbiome and our brains. And what's fascinating is 90% of that communication is actually the gut talking to the brain, not the other way around. So when you think about who's driving in your gut, if it's the bad bacteria, of course you're going to have brain fog and depression and all those things. And I did. I absolutely experienced those. It made it hard. It made it hard to go to social events where everybody else was having pizza and mashed potatoes and French fries. And I knew if I gave in, I was going to be miserable with physically and mentally. And, you know, everybody, you know, in their profession obviously has a role. And I look at macronutrients, and so do you, a little bit differently than a typical registered dietitian or a regular nutritionist. They're very big about the food pyramid, and well, the food pyramid is crap. You do not need carbohydrates to live. It's a micronutrient that we can completely live without. But they get stuck on it, right? We have to bring in things. And so when I was really sick, and this is before I went back to school, I was taking deep dives on the internet and I was learning and I was trying to work with food with myself and my family. But my doctor kept asking me, go see this nutritionist. And I'm thinking, why? I'm figured it out on my own. I know I can't have things. And she had decided I just could not metabolize carbs at this point. We weren't sure if I'd ever be able to get them back or not. And so I'd already started diving into, a ketogenic lifestyle a little bit, not as heavily and as diligent as I've been the past couple of years. But she sends me to the nutritionist, and I'm sure they're great at their job, but every 5 minutes in the conversation, she'd say, okay, I need you to bring in rice. I can't have rice. Well, oh, okay. I need you to bring in quinoa. I can't have quinoa. Oh, okay. Well, next week, we'll give you a week rest, but next week, I want you to bring in beans. Can't have beans. Like, she wasn't understanding. She was so stuck on that pyramid and what the perfect setup is for the perfect in the box person, that she couldn't get it through her head that I couldn't eat those things. And the truth is, we don't need those things. There's doctors who have completely gone carnivore themselves for years just to prove to the point that you can live off an animal. And of course, that's hardcore keto, right? Just completely carnivore. And at the end of a year, their blood work was beautiful. They weren't lacking in nutrition. There's actually a lot of information that some of our hormone imbalances can come from eating too many of the carbohydrates and the fruits and stuff like that mess up our microbiome.
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to go back to one of the comments that you made. The nutritionist said to you, I need you to bring in quinoa. That is awesome. That wasn't even a thing 20 years ago. Like, it's you say to someone 20 years ago, do you have any quinoa? They go, what are you talking about? Um,
Exactly.
yeah. So you mentioned your husband and your family. How big is your family?
It's my husband and myself, and then we have 3 children.
Okay.
Only one left at home. The other 2 are grown now.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
So
but
have they been eating the same way as you, or are they kind of doing their own thing? How does it work?
um, they're all gluten free. They limit the dairy. They don't eat sugar. But they use the keto diet more like a tool in their toolbox. So, if my husband has, some health things creeping up, his arthritis gets bad, whatever, he'll get into keto again for a little while. And then he tends to, okay, I've reached my goals. I'm going to take a break from it, which is completely fine. I don't think that staying on one thing forever is always the right answer. Our bodies need diet variation. We want to put our bodies into hormesis, which is a good stress, right? So no different than when you decide you're going to run a marathon next month. You don't just go out and run the marathon. It's too much stress on the body. But you may run to the mailbox, and then tomorrow you're going to run the neighbor's mailbox, and then the day after that you run down the street, because each time you're hitting your hormetic ceiling, and your body then will raise that ceiling and allow you to go a little bit further each time. And so I do think that we need diet variation. We need to constantly change up our eating windows, like the time, so our body doesn't figure us out, kind of manipulate that metabolism. And also we need to have days where we are low carb, but also days where we do eat carbohydrates. It's called a feast day. I hate that word because I envision people hiding in the closet with a 6-pack of beer and a dozen donuts, and that's not what it's supposed to be. But all of my family at any given time, at some point through their journey, has done a ketogenic diet. And then, like I said, my husband's much better than my kids at it. My daughters tend to, like to get into the chocolate whenever they can. So they're not currently on the ketogenic diet. He is. And the nice thing about men, see, you're lucky here, is you can do ketogenic diet every day if you wanted. And you can bring in all the fasting, and it will actually raise your testosterone levels if done correctly. Where with women, if they're still of cycling age, it's a bit more of a game for us in terms of when are we going to have those carb days. And we want to have them, of course, before we ovulate and before we actually have our cycle. And then, we can really hone in if you want to play. And one of the things I love to do is those first couple of days, though, we need, we're low in iron, we need lots of red meat, is I like to do a carnivore style type of ketogenic diet those first even couple of days of the month, and really kind of bring in, make sure I'm getting plenty of iron and stuff.
You talked about like something you like to try with people. So are we talking about your clients here? You're working with people to kind of help them with issues such as arthritis and things like that with ketogenic diets?
Yes, yes. So I have chronic Lyme disease.
Mm-hmm.
I've had it, they believe, since high school. I gave it to my children in utero. So each of them had varying issues. My son, at the age of 20 months, I was told he was 2 points from being diagnosed retarded. He would end up in a home. It turns out he just had Lyme. But, again, he was another person that I had to take the carbs away, take the sugar away, and bring in all these different nutrition and lifestyle modalities on top of modern medicine. So through our journey of healing, and I went back to school because I was on PICC lines, central line, IV lines, for almost 3 years, on top of oral antibiotics, antifungals, herbals. And, at any point in time, somebody in my family had just about every symptom you could think of. Before they knew I had Lyme, I was diagnosed with a bazillion different things before they finally said, you probably have Lou Gehrig's disease, you're going to die. And it wasn't. It was Lyme, and but it affected my heart. So I've had heart surgeries and different procedures to make sure that I don't have a heart attack. So, but through all of that, I did go back to school. So before I realized I was sick, I was in law enforcement. So I was a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. So I was a detective, and I had all these weird symptoms that would come and go, but I was living off adrenaline. I was young. I didn't think twice about it. My third pregnancy, though, I got very, very sick. And of course, then he came out, and my other children were already having issues, but he came out, was severely delayed. I started to, burn the candle at both ends, trying to figure out what's going on with the kids, what's going on with me. And that's when, I was too sick to go back to work, but I started to do these deep dives. And then I went back and I had a complete different career shift, and decided I would go into health and wellness. So I went back and became a functional nutritional therapy practitioner, a supplement specialist. I got certified in a couple of different healing dietary interventions, and opened my own practice. So now what I do, I don't see one-on-one necessarily. I have programs that I've built based on exactly what I used to get better. So there was a point in time where I did something called the autoimmune paleo protocol diet, which removes all inflammatory foods. And you have to take them all out. You have to basically shut down the light switch of overreactivity. Your body's overreacting, right? Inflammation's through the roof. You have leaky gut. You're developing antibodies. So you do this, and then when things calm down, you reintroduce these food groups one at a time, and you watch reaction, and you learn to customize the diet specific to you, because you'll come back and you'll find that, for example, you may find that you can't have dairy, or I can find that dairy's fine for me, but I can't have nightshades or whatnot. So it's a great way to fast forward healing. But then I took that a step further because, as you know, I continue to have digestive issues and bloat and all this stuff. Even on that diet, I was feeling better. That's another one of those diets that got me kind of 80%. And I really, really believe that's a great starting point for somebody that knows they have food sensitivities and doesn't know why, doesn't know what they're reacting to. But the step further was I then overlaid a ketogenic diet on it and some intermittent fasting, and then figured out how to use the ketogenic diet throughout the month with my cycle to balance my hormones, like we were talking about. So I have made programs, online programs, to teach people how to do just this. And so the one I have that's specific to hormone balancing and metabolism does go into a ketogenic diet, carnivore, intermittent fasting, different types of extended fasting, how to set up your macronutrients, how to test your levels, what's the GKI, all of the things you need in order to be successful, and have these tools in your toolbox to kind of deploy whenever you need to have them, even if you choose to not make a keto lifestyle your house, per se, or where you live.
So I have a lot of questions. So just to take a step back, I'm kind of ignorant related to Lyme disease. I've heard people talk about it before, but I'm not actually sure what it is. Could you explain a little bit about what Lyme disease is?
Yes, Lyme is a pretty hot topic right now. It's I like to call it a silent epidemic because it's one of those diseases where, because you're not missing your arm, right? Your ear's not falling off. You're not in a wheelchair most of the time. That people don't really realize how sick you are. You're just kind of silently suffering. You look good on the outside. You can fake it till you make it. But Lyme is one of the tick-borne diseases. It's actually called Borrelia, and it's carried by the black-leg tick. And so it can cause a whole host of problems. It's not the only tick-borne disease, and birds of a feather flock together. So if you get Lyme, Borrelia, a lot of times you're also going to have other co-infections, is what they call it. So you could have Bartonella, you could have Babesia. There was a point where my husband got Rocky Mountain spotted fever, which is a little different. A lot of times that can come from a dog tick, where a dog tick doesn't carry Lyme. So there's all these different tick-borne diseases, and they come in they're spirochetes, and they burrow in, and they can get into the brain, they can get into the organs, they get into your spinal fluid. And a lot of people know Lyme as, you get this bullseye rash. Maybe you've heard of that, but they're finding a large portion of people don't get the bullseye rash, and testing is still inaccurate. It's so much better than it was, a decade ago, but it's still not reliable enough that if you get a test and you're told it's negative, that it can be counted upon. So a lot of, they call them Lyme literate medical doctors, will also go based on symptoms of what you have. Now, the symptoms can run the gamut, which also makes it really hard to diagnose sometimes, because it can cause, memory problems, brain fog, fatigue, joint pain, muscle pain, headaches, migraines, digestive issues, hallucinations and seizures, and pretty much just about every symptom out there. In the way it shuts down your immune system, it actually, by definition, almost causes you to become autoimmune. And so therefore, a lot of people consider it to be an autoimmune disease when you get it chronically over a long period of time. So, it's I don't want to say fascinating. I guess it is fascinating, not to the person who has it, but it's fascinating what one little tick can do. It truly can destroy someone's life if they don't catch it in time. And there's a lot of controversy about that too. There are some modern medicine doctors who don't believe in chronic Lyme disease. They just say you can take 30 days of doxycycline, it's going to wipe it out. Any symptoms you have left, you're stuck with forever. And, sometimes people believe that, and I wish they wouldn't, because, 5-10 years I was on oral antibiotics and herbals and antifungals, 3 years of having a line out of my arm. And if I had given up after 30 days, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I know that there is I believe in chronic Lyme disease. And I also believe, though, that modern medicine has a place, and we needed it. It only gets you so far. And you really have to think about all these different modalities, like the ketogenic diet, that you can bring in to just enhance your healing. When modern doctors treat something, it's almost like they take a grenade and they just drop it. And if you picture our guts after antibiotics, one round of antibiotics destroys 70% of your gut, of your microbiome, one round. And so if you picture these people who have chronic illness like Lyme disease, and they're taking multiple rounds of different antibiotics trying to kill it, the doctors aren't thinking about the aftermath. So I picture people's guts almost looking like a battleground from some old black and white World War II movie where, the ground is scorched and there's dead bodies everywhere and there's like some smoke coming from a couple little bushes. That's what happens to our bodies. And so whether you do it in tandem with modern medicine or maybe, you're behind the curve now and you need to catch up, either way, you have got to kind of look at things through a broader lens and really use nutrition and lifestyle changes to your advantage. It's even something as simple as, dry brushing or Epsom salt baths to open up your detoxification pathways to help you detox. And then bringing in the ketogenic diet, because if we can get some brain clarity going and have that energy, it's a lot easier to fight your battles if you've got the energy to do it. I mean, one of the things you hear all the time when people are sick is they just can't even get out of bed, right? They can't even fight. They're just going to roll over, take their medicine they've been told to take, they roll back over. But let's give them some energy using the ketogenic diet to get up and get pissed and start fighting for what's theirs. I mean, it is our God-given right to be healthy, and yet it gets taken away from us on a regular basis. And we all deserve to be healthy.
That's a really good point. Just having that mental energy can be the thing that you need to just get up and fight against it, right? If you
Absolutely.
if you don't have that, then everything's lost, right?
Right.
Mm. Um,
I
s- oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, even when I wasn't eating sugar, because of course I mentioned to you, I went into the autoimmune paleo protocol first before I layered on the ketogenic, and I wasn't eating sugar. I was realizing I didn't eat carbs, and yet I was insulin resistant. And even that went away with the ketogenic diet and bringing in all these different um, adjuncts and just allowing my body to heal. I was able to reverse that. And that's another thing where doctors give you medication. Insulin resistance is like pre-diabetes. So if you continue down that road, you're going to end up on metformin or something like that. Instead of using food as healing, right? Focus on the gut, balance the hormones. And, when we talk about what's truly damaged, like they say inflammation is the root cause of disease. And it's true because that's what starts this whole thing, right? And we have over 30 trillion cells in our body. Our whole body is composed of cells. So when the inflammation hits the cell itself, then you have to worry about what kind of damage is that. And on the outer membrane, which is completely composed of fat. So anybody who doesn't eat fat in their diet because they think, that's bad, I feel sorry for them because their cells are sick. But on this cell membrane are all these cell receptors. And that is where, the message gets in from the proteins and the hormones in our body, and it can upregulate cellular energy. And so when we think also about what does a ketogenic diet do with or without fasting, either way, they're both going to put you into autophagy, which is where our body devours damaged cell parts. And then it encourages stem cell production, which is new, healthy cells being made. I mean, we roll over cells all the time, but when we fast or do a ketogenic diet to kind of fast forward that autophagy, it happens at a faster pace. And so if we know inflammation is damaging all of us, we're all, we've got the Western diet, we've got toxins all around us. So we're all exposed to things causing this inflammation and cell damage. If we can use getting in ketosis as a way to turn over their cells faster, we're going to fix hormone dysfunction and all of the other things that are attributed to from damaged cells faster. Because once we damage the cell receptors, it's not like the using insulin, for example. The insulin can't come over to the cell. It's got a damaged insulin receptor and go, hey, I think I'm damaged. I'm going to go hang out on the adrenal cortisol receptor. They're all very specific. So once they're damaged, you're just not getting that in there. And when we think about insulin resistance, that's exactly what's happening is we're producing all this insulin, but it's not getting into the cell. The message isn't getting in. And it can happen with any hormone. I mean, look at men now who talk about, you know, low libido is a big one, right? Actually, men and women, because of all the sex hormones even aren't getting into the cell. Or you have leptin and ghrelin. You have the people who are always hungry and then they overeat because they're not getting that signal to stop. Any hormone you can think of, you can get a dysfunction from, and it all goes down to that inflammation. But to know that we can use something as simple as food and then also stop assimilating food as such healing properties to our body.
Yeah, very nice. I think you mentioned a lot about things like autophagy and intermittent fasting and stuff like that there as well. And I think um, a lot of the improvements I've seen in myself have come from a combination of all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll often hear from people that they will say to me, "Oh, it's not the ketogenic diet, in my case, carnivore. It's not carnivore that has helped you. It's the fact you're not drinking anymore. Or it's not carnivore that's helped you. It's the fact you're intermittent fasting or something like that." And I'd say, well, these all play a role. But I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the most important things to think about as well, for these kind of the keto doubters, is that it's actually, in my opinion, it's keto or carnivore or ketovore, whatever you want to call it, that is facilitating all these things.
Absolutely.
It gives you that mental clarity and that self-control to be able to go, you know what, I am going to do a 48-hour fast, or I don't need alcohol anymore, or whatever it happens to be, you know.
Absolutely. And the cravings quit. You know,
Mm.
people say that all the time when they go into a reduced sugar diet or a reduced carbohydrate diet is at first they're like, give it to me. I'll lick the sidewalk if there's gum on it. They really want it. But if they can just push past that, what they're doing is they're shifting their microbiome. And so those microbiota that need that and send those cravings up are no longer there. You mentioned that you're carnivore and you can shift your microbiome using fasting and carnivore within 24 hours. There's already going to be a shift in it. And so that's why a lot of times if somebody gets on carnivore, when I used to put people on carnivore, they have to be ready for the detox that's about to occur. Um, some people, do get mood swings when it first happens, or they have flushing and they're running for the border a whole lot. I've got to give them some binders. But some people right off the bat feel amazing. Either way, the transformation is just you experienced it, you know what it's like, and you don't go back. Once you feel it, you don't need to go back because now we have the good bugs. Like I bet your microbiome looks fantastic.
So, I mean, yeah, you said it right there. Once you're on it, there's no going back, you know.
Right.
And like you'll hear people say, "Well, when are you going to stop doing the diet?" You know, it's like, why would I stop? Like, I'm not going to go back to eating ice cream and donuts, you know.
Right.
And if I went back to eating ice cream and donuts even once, it would all be over anyway, you know, like it's the same as alcohol with me. But
Okay.
so so just to jump back a little bit again, you also mentioned heart surgery. Is that related to the Lyme disease?
It is. It is.
Okay.
So, when you have chronic Lyme, and of course, it messes with the immune system, the inflammation, just about every organ can be compromised depending how long you've had it. It did affect my heart. So I had a couple of procedures to fix some stuff. But I also ended up with mast cell activation in a rare condition called Kuhn syndrome, where if my histamines degrade too fast from my mast cells, it can cause me to have coronary artery spasms. And then, I have to take nitroglycerin in order not to have a heart attack. That is another thing that I was able to get under control by addressing inflammation and cell health and going to a ketogenic diet. Because, through my healing journey and with modern medicine, which again had a place, and going into an anti-inflammatory diet and bringing in exercise and all this stuff, it helped. But that was one of those wild cards, the heart. Like I never knew was I going to go months without an episode and then have 3 episodes in a week. And they're not fun. You take nitro, you get you loopy, you're called the ambulance, you're the whole 9 yards, right? Every time it happened. And when I brought in the ketogenic diet, though, and really started to push myself more and more into autophagy and started dabbling in fasting, I didn't know it at the time. But of course, what was I doing? I was turning over those cells even faster. And even mast cells are going to turn over, right? A cell is a cell. And so I finally have that under control. And I don't have to be fearful at all anymore. Again, just by changing my diet.
Hmm. It's yeah, diet really has control of us. But
Mm-hmm.
so what do you think about my feeling about diets, as far as what the traditional nutritionists or dietitians would tell you about, you need to eat um, all, all the colors of the rainbow. You need to eat everything. It needs to be balanced and all that kind of thing. My feeling about this is I always try and just look at it in the most basic terms. And those basic terms being, why are we the only species that has to overcomplicate this? Why are we
Mm-hmm.
the only species that has to, think that we are smarter than, the way we were put together, the way we
Right.
evolved?
Right. Because it takes one person with a stupid idea and a bunch of sheep to follow.
Hmm.
That's why. To be honest with you. And that's what happens. It's no different than that Heart Healthy campaign from the 1950s. And now, fat's big taboo, fat's bad. And we still have people out there doing it. My own mother and father-in-law still put sweet and low in their water. They won't drink water without sweet and low in it.
Oh
And
wow.
believe that fat is bad for you and won't eat any fat. And so I think once people get it stuck in their head, they're afraid. It does go back to, leader, follower, are you a sheep? And they just do it when there has been countless studies, not only debunking that, but showing the importance of fat. Our cells are made of fat. And yet people are afraid. They attribute that if you eat fat, it's going to make you fat. Just like they think if you eat cholesterol, your cholesterol is going to go up. And that is a whole nother soapbox, because it's just wrong, right? And, if you eat the right fat, if you eat good fat, it's actually anti-inflammatory and can help you lose weight. The thing is, our cell membranes, I mentioned the cell membranes, of course, are composed of fat. And if we don't have fat, the cell would collapse on itself, which is quite dramatic, but it's true. It's like you're building a house with with hollow bricks instead of having nice solid foundation when you have a diet that has no fat in it. And fat attracts fat. So if our cell membrane is fat, it attracts fat, which is again where I go back to the importance of what fat do you bring in your diet. If you're going to do a dirty keto diet, then sure you may lose weight, you may be skinnier, but your cells aren't going to be healthy because all of that processed rancid oil type fat are now taking up, not making up your cell membrane, instead of it being good fats, instead of pushing the wild caught fish and the red meat and all the things like that. But even people who eat, I'm going to pick on the dirty keto people again, even people who do that still haven't got their head around the fact that we need cholesterol. And, if somebody's cholesterol goes through the roof, first thing I say is, what's going on in their body? What are they fighting right now? Like when people get cancer, their cholesterol goes up. That doesn't go up because they're eating cholesterol. Dietary cholesterol has very little effect on serum cholesterol. And our bodies can upregulate and downregulate as it needs it. So if we quit eating cholesterol because we say it's bad and we don't eat eggs, then we're still going to get cholesterol. Our body's just going to make it. And that's why I don't know why people don't think it. Obviously, it's important for us to have it if our body's willing to make it. But they're so quick to blame it, right? It's like blaming the ambulance at the accident, because you see ambulances everywhere. So you're like, oh, the ambulances are to blame. No, the ambulance showed up as a patch to an accident. And that's what cholesterol does. So when they find cholesterol and somebody's got, coronary issues and all that, it's not the cholesterol, it's the blame, right? We need to look at the bigger picture. The cholesterol just came as a patch to repair. And I think if people stop being so fearful of cholesterol too, they'd be maybe more willing to try a diet like our bodies are intended to have and be more of a ketogenic, or perhaps even move into a carnivore diet. It's just people don't know, and so they follow and instead of doing their own research.
It makes you think, how much damage did we all do to our bodies in the 80s when we were all making egg white omelets cooked in vegetable oil, It's
Yeah, and I did it too. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just because everyone says, "Oh, yolks are bad for you, and saturated fat's bad." So you go, "Okay, well, yeah, it must be the right thing to do: egg whites and seed oils."
Yep, absolutely. My brother is an avid keto follower, and he's been for as long as I have, very, very big into the ketogenic diet. He's a little bit dirtier than I am, and it drives me crazy. But he just reminded me yesterday that, like, when he went to college, he was making macaroni and cheese boxes, but with only water. Because again, fat was bad. If you want to lose weight, you can have all the carbs you want, you just can't have any fat. And look at what we know now. He is in the best shape of his life. I'm in the best shape of my life. And even after everything I've been through, and where people tell you, oh, well, you're healthy because you gave up alcohol, or you're healthy because you fast. No, you're healthy because of a combination of all of these things. And every one of them is making you a little bit better. And then it's enhancing the ability of the other one.
Yeah, agreed. So one question I forgot to ask you as we were going through, what is your daily eating plan like? Does it vary from day to day? Are you eating 3 times a day? How are you going?
It does vary a lot, because I am a big believer that you have to vary. I like to call it metabolic manipulation when I talk to people who are trying to lose weight, because you have to keep the body guessing. I get clients that come to me on a regular basis, and they're like, well, I intermittent fast. I'm like, okay, how's that working out for you? Well, I'm not losing any weight. Okay, what have you done? Well, over the past 6 months, I've eaten between this hour and this hour every single day. And so their body figures it out, and their body's like, okay, Dave, I know you're not going to feed me till 1 p.m, so I'm going to downregulate my metabolism. And about 1 o'clock, I'll pick it back up. That's what it's going to do. And so you have to constantly vary your windows so that your body's like, I don't know when you're going to feed me, but I know you're going to feed me. I'm not in starvation mode. So I'm going to have to keep my metabolism revved up so I'm ready. And that is a huge tool. And so I do vary my windows every single day, but I'm also really big about when I work out. I'm a CrossFitter. And so when I go to the gym, it's important to me to get home and make sure that I get at least 30 grams of protein so I can get enough leucine for muscle synthesis. So when I talk about doing longer intermittent fasts, those are going to be on my non-gym days because I don't want, I don't want to stop making muscle, and I certainly don't want to catalyze my muscle by trying to do a fast after the gym. Some people do fine with that, and I've done it in the past. I think it just depends on what your goal is. So for me specifically, my goal right now is I'm trying to build muscle, and so I will always within an hour of the gym go ahead and eat. At that point, it's every bit of 12 or 14 hours since I ate less anyway, so it's still intermittent fasting, but it's not as extended as I do on my days off. And I average probably 2 meals a day is the norm for me. Sometimes I will have 3 meals, but that's rare. And then on days I don't go to the gym and I'm able to go longer, I'll have black coffee and I'll end up doing sometimes just 1 meal or 1 meal and a small snack. And that works out really, really well for me.
So, and those 2 meals, are they when you're generally having 2 meals a day, is that like lunch and dinner, or does it generally work out, or you're mixing that up as well? So one day it would be breakfast and dinner and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mix that up as well.
Mm.
But I'll tell you that I'm I'm a foodie, and since I still have a child at home, we still try to do the typical sit around the dinner table together in the evenings. So I'm not somebody who will eat in the morning and then skip dinner. There's a lot of benefit to eating earlier in the day and starting your fast sooner. My brother's big about that. He'll eat at like 2 in the afternoon and then he won't eat again until the following day. Um, I always eat dinner as one of my meals. It works out better for my family. I think it's important that food has become such a social thing. And we use it as a reward. We use it to define how much fun we have with friends, right? It's about food or it's about booze. And so in order for me to not be cranky because I don't get to eat, I choose to always have dinner with my family.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So Jamie, if someone wants to reach out to you, to get in contact or to do some kind of consult with you, how can they get in contact?
Yes, absolutely. So I have my website, Functional Wellness Collective, and I'll share all the links with you. And in it, I have the wellness model, and that is based on 4 foundations that I believe everybody needs to address in order to have optimal wellness, whether you're trying to regain your health or just maintain your health. So you've got, the mindset piece, you've got the nutrition and digestive piece, hormones and metabolism, and then lifestyle and functional movement. And so under each of these, 2 of them I do have online self-paced programs that they can do themselves. And then I have 2 others I'm working on getting finished. With them, they do come with a private community, so you have access to me 24/7 in a group setting. I also have a membership program that I've recently launched that also has a private community 24/7 access to ask me questions. I found so many people struggle with they need to ask a few questions about maybe how to realistically apply, let's say, the ketogenic diet to their life, or what food groups should they eliminate first if they know they're having some problems and they're sensitive to something. Or these are easy questions, but if you call your doctor, first off, he's not going to give you answers because they're all about take a pill for that. But also, okay, schedule an appointment, pay your copay, wait 2 weeks to get in. So I made this community so that I can answer those questions for people and kind of guide them on their healing journey. I do a monthly Q&A with the group. I do a monthly masterclass where I educate on a particular topic and steps that you can implement immediately for you or your family. And if somebody is in my membership, they actually get 50% off any of my programs, and they get my book in digital and audio format. So I do have a book, it's a bestseller on Amazon, on my family and I's healing journey through Lyme. And just kind of, it's a great book to explain that you're not alone. Like everybody who's been sick before will tell you it feels lonely. Like you can hear about the thousands or bazillions or whatever number it is of people who have MS. But if somebody has MS, they feel alone, or Lyme, or um, arthritis. It's very lonely to be sick. And it was important to me to share our story. It's actually something I promised my late mother before she passed, that I would share the story, because you only have two options when you're sick. You fight like hell or you give up. And I certainly was not going to give up, especially with my children. So I was going to go to the end of the earth to make sure that they were healthy and thriving. And so this book does go into our journey and everything we went through from between the kids and myself. And it's raw, it's honest, and I think it would be a good place for anybody who is struggling with some symptoms. Maybe they haven't even been diagnosed. But if you are in my membership, you also get that in audio and digital format. And then, of course, it's available everywhere that you can buy a book in audio and paperback and Kindle version.
Nice. So of course I'll link to everything in the description. Jamie, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you sharing your story.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
Guys, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to click like and subscribe, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.